Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Meet the Professor series, a unique initiative that allows high school students to engage with Ashoka's stellar faculty. Here's your chance to join a conversation with your favorite Ashoka faculty and discuss the majors and minors, or learn about their innovative work, research projects, teaching pedagogy, or any other aspects of the undergraduate program at Ashoka University. Thank you for joining us for today's session on CS and Entrepreneurship at Ashoka. I'm Aditi Tibrawal, currently in my third year, majoring in computer science and entrepreneurship. Joining us today are Professor Debayan, currently an assistant professor of computer science at Ashoka University. He teaches a course on security and privacy, as well as an introductory programming class. He is also a visiting professor and research affiliate at MIT and MIT Sloan. We also have with us Professor Priyank Narayan, head of the Entrepreneurship Department and director of InfoEd Center for Entrepreneurship, Ashoka University. He is a seasoned entrepreneur and an educationist who brings with him rich experience in organization building. Here is how we'll be taking today's session forward. Both professors will have a short presentation that they have prepared for you about their departments and work they're involved with. This will be followed by general questions, post which we'll break into breakout rooms where you can interact with professors. So without further ado, let's get started. We'll have Professor Debayan go first, followed by Professor Priyank. Over to you, professors.
Fantastic, cool. Thank you for that very kind introduction, Aditi. So here's how I'm going to do it. We have 15 minutes. I'm going to give you an overview of the way we do computer science over at Ashoka. And I'm going to talk also for a couple of minutes about certain very important aspects of computer science as a subject. Now, obviously, this is going to be through the only lens that I can view the world through, which is my lens. So by definition, some of the things that I'm going to talk about are going to sort of forcibly be aligned with my area of interest. But in case you have certain other areas of interest, please don't feel shy about asking questions, saying that, and maybe I can refer you to some other professors who do that sort of thing. Okay, so let me just share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, fantastic. Aditi, could you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So CS at Ashoka. Computer science is one of those weird subjects that is wildly misnamed, right? Because if you talk to a lot of computer scientists, you'll find that it has very little to do with computers. And most of the time, we're producing new code. We are synthesizing, not necessarily analyzing and doing experiments. So it's not really a science. You're not discovering stuff about the real world. Now, we spend a lot of time over at Ashoka and the Department of Computer Science there trying to really delve into what computer science is. And I think it's really important that we understand this. Computer science isn't just coding. It's not about building bigger machines and so on and so forth. It's really about processes and the automation thereof. That's why it's so pervasive, because pretty much everything's a process, right? You get from point A to point B. And what that does with the kinds of advances that we've had in the last few decades, it allows us to improve the way humans live their lives across the world. Now, I'm going to go through a few of my areas of interest in within this realm, and I'm going to try and discuss one or two big problems that we're working on right now. So a little bit about me. My main area of interest is cryptography and computer security, right? So I spend a lot of time building essentially mathematical functions that behave in a certain way, right? A lot of this involves training up students to learn the mathematical background required. We assume that, you know, the schooling background is assumed to be just basics, right? We also spend a lot of time collaborating with real-world companies to design things that they actually need. And I'll discuss a little bit about that. You'll see in the third point, I've mentioned this thing called traceability. So right now, for example, we're working with NASSCOM, which is the IT industry body in India, and many, many other large companies, including, for example, WhatsApp, it's Facebook, to try and help them design solutions that will sort of be somewhere in the middle ground between what they want. Facebook wants minimal extra overhead, and what the Indian government wants, which is this traceability, which you may have heard of, given that it came out in the IT rules not too long ago. Now, so while working with all of these companies, one of the things that we try really, really hard to do is make everything that we teach actually worth something, right? You'll find, and as you go ahead and speak to other professors at Ashoka, one of the things that I think people tend to do, people who are in research tend to do without really thinking about it, is we don't teach you stuff that is worthless. This is a huge problem in India, by the way, which is well-meaning teachers end up teaching you things that you will never use, right? You'll learn it, 6 months later, you're going to forget about it, right? Generally speaking, if there's stuff like that that you need to learn, I'll be like, hey, there's a great YouTube video about this, go learn it. I'm not going to waste my time with that. Now, let me go through these other chunks of stuff. Machine learning is something I don't like calling it artificial intelligence. I don't think it has much to do with intelligence as such. We do a lot of very, very cool work in machine learning. My primary areas of interest, and therefore, all the students who work with me are working on some really amazing ML stuff. And I'm going to be briefly talking about one of them in a few slides later. But a lot of our focus right now is on large-scale healthcare over at Ashoka, because we think that by far one of the biggest problems we have in India right now, and it's come up because of COVID, but it's not just COVID, right? Things like maternal mortality rates, things like TB. There's a lot of large-scale disease that is going on in India about which we genuinely have very large amounts of data. The data collection is there, but it's not being shared properly and it's not being processed properly. And we're working with many, many large groups. I can't get into the details of all of them because healthcare data is very sensitive. But we're working with many, many people who have access to this data to try and help them make better decisions, right? Because a doctor can only see maybe N patients. What if we take the experience of tens of thousands of doctors and we start identifying certain commonalities, and we can warn these doctors that, hey, you are telling patient number 43 to go back home. It looks like the vast majority of patients with patient number 43's background who went back home after being treated with medication ABC had to be readmitted within 7 days. So maybe you want to keep them for a few days longer. There's a lot of work being done across the world using large-scale data to try and solve and provide insight and provide augmentation to a medical doctor's ability to handle large numbers of cases. The third among the bullet points you see right here is this idea about society and tech. And as India rapidly digitizes, this is something that is becoming more and more important. This involves not just Aadhaar and traceability, which I've written up there, but understanding how a society, once it is exposed to a certain kind of technology, will evolve differently. And this is really hard to predict. If we allow really fast payment systems in an area, what do you need to do before you introduce that to make sure that the rates of fraud are low, right? What are the best mechanisms for preventing tech fraud, sort of people transferring money out of your bank account, so to speak? And we work a lot with industry and banks and so on and so forth to try and help them design high quality protocols, tech protocols, basically. When I say protocols, I'm not saying do this, then do that. I'm talking about actual mathematical systems running underneath to help detect where vulnerabilities may lie, right? And throughout all of this, you'll see that there's a lot of interdisciplinarity. You can't solve these problems unless you really care about where they're being applied. This is even more so when you do a full-scale crossover with things like biology and physics. One of my I'll talk about a couple of my favorite crossovers that I'm doing. One is in biology/epidemiology, another is in physics. But there's a bunch of other stuff going on as well, especially in psych, and I'm happy to chat about that if people are interested. But this isn't just me, right? The entire department and every professor in it is doing this sort of thing in their own areas of interest, but directly applied to the real world. This means there's also a lot of undergraduate integration with what's going on, right? This doesn't mean that, this research that is happening, there's a reason why high quality universities across the world are also research universities. It's because the undergraduates who are studying with us are also, in many, many cases, actively involved in the type of research that we're doing. They're doing a lot of these cool things themselves. They're thinking them up, they're proposing their ideas, and we're helping them bring those to fruition, right? There's a bunch of these thematic areas which we're pursuing. I mentioned health and digitization, and at a large scale data analysis, right? I'll briefly mention one thing about physics. It's one of my favorite physics projects that we worked on. We call it Waldo because, finding Waldo. This is about something that turns very, very low quality sensors into essentially radar. If you've seen that old Batman Begins movie, that's what we tried to build. And this was built entirely by undergrads, right? A lot of the stuff that we end up building in this way, I knew nothing about this, right? I just know a little bit of ML, but it was the creativity of the undergraduates who collaborated with each other and said, hey, let's get some physics people over, let's get some CS people over, let's learn about sensing. And then your course load is determined not just by, okay, I need to take ABCD courses to graduate. It's, wait, I need to take this course to learn more in order to solve a particular problem, right? There are many, many problems of this variety that we're attacking, which involve things like chemistry, physics, etc. But the one that I mentioned before that I really want to attack here, just in the next 2-3 minutes, is one of my favorite large-scale projects. It's called PartSim. This was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and then Emphasis F1 Foundation. And this started a little bit, this actually started a little bit before COVID hit, but COVID made it a lot more important. So the idea behind this project was, we're really bad at predicting how diseases spread. Epidemiologists have all these equations, but they're not really very good at predicting these things properly, right? What happens if I do a vaccination drive? What happens if there's a new variant? What happens if this? What happens if that? What if you lock down? And we put a bunch of us together and we decided, look, we don't know the math. We're not epidemiologists. They don't seem to be able to predict stuff well anyway. Let's do an agent-based model. What that means is you just simulate the whole darn thing. If you've played strategy, like, if you've played StarCraft or something, that's literally this 1.3 billion agents literally just running around from place to place. And we just simulate it at very, very large scale. So we build a baby supercomputer, attach everything to it, simulate it at large scales. And we're talking very, very, very detailed stuff. We build realistic maps of India, a real city with real hospitals where real hospitals are, real workplaces with real combinations of people. So people wake up in the morning, they go to work, so on and so forth. Actually just simulate everything, right? Obviously, we're not simulating things like, what facial features someone has, but literally their movements are simulated entirely. And this requires very, very, very large amounts of collaboration between computer scientists, medical experts, anthropologists, because guess what? The kinds of movements made by a 65-year-old Muslim woman in Bengal is very different from the kinds of movements made by a 65-year-old Muslim woman in Maharashtra. And those are both very different from a 35-year-old male in Kerala. So you need to have deep anthropological insight in order to be able to predict people's movements in this way. And we've been working with Eames and a bunch of other institutes across the world in trying to design these systems. This means we've been able to actually describe the spread of the disease pretty much better than anyone else, at least for India. And the idea behind this sort of thing is we're not trying to predict what will happen next year, but having a 20, 30, 40-day look ahead so that you can quickly move resources beforehand. This is not meant to be charts that are shown on TV saying this many cases today. This is meant to be, hey, this district is going to get hit extra hard this time. Let's move resources there beforehand, right? We can do strains. We are running this for real populations with millions of people. And we're actually actively working with various parts of the Indian government and multiple industry members to try and design this out for real world use. Lots of charts. I put this in there just to highlight the entire amount of interdisciplinarity required, because how the disease spreads in one district is not how it spreads in another district. And you need people, you need local information in order to be able to do that. What I want to really stress with this background content is something that we really realized while teaching computer science at Ashoka is interdisciplinary is more. It's not, if I'm doing something in econ, it doesn't mean I can be less competent at computer science. It means I have to be as competent in computer science as a pure core CS person, and then I have to do more, right? An interdisciplinary CS plus entrepreneurship degree or CS plus econ degree or whatever is not, CS plus the other thing divided by 2. There is no division. You actually need to learn both. It's a lot of hard work, but I truly believe that if you do it, you'll get a lot out of it. That's it from my end, exactly 15 minutes. And so I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you, Professor. Professor Priyank, would you like to go?
Sure. Hi, good evening, everyone. Just give me a second. I'm going to just share my screen and then we can get started. Okay, so thank you, Debayan, for that sort of wonderful overview of all the exciting things that you're doing in the computer science department. What I'm going to share with all of you over the next 10-15 minutes is a little bit around what we do in entrepreneurship at Ashoka. And I want to also share with you how differently we do this particular area of study as well as of practice. So let me sort of start with giving you a little perspective about what is entrepreneurship and what is and how it's taught at Ashoka. So one of the things that we want to share with all of you as we go along is that entrepreneurship, especially as a field of study, given that we are teaching entrepreneurship in the context of liberal arts, is not just about creating ventures. It's not just about going out there and doing a startup. It's essentially about creating an entrepreneurial mindset, a mindset that is going to look for problems and look for ways to solve that problem. So in a lot of ways, it is a problem-solving perspective that gets delivered through our various interventions in the classroom and outside the classroom. So, and a lot of people ask, what is this whole mindset? What is this problem-solving thing that you're talking about? In very simple words, and if I can say in Hindi, if you ask me what it's called a mindset which will help you put a jugaad solution very often to a lot of things. Now, jugaad, you may look at it as a very temporary or a very it's often not a respective solution, but it's a solution that gives you relief in that moment, right? And what we teach when we teach entrepreneurial mindset is how do you actually solve a problem both with a jugaad mindset, but also as a mindset that takes limited resources that may be available to you to scaling that problem, and then eventually, if required, commercializing the innovation that you have created through this whole process of jugaad. There are a whole bunch of interventions that we do. So at the center, we've actually, it's a very vibrant place on campus. So for those of you who eventually get a chance to visit campus, to drop by the Center for Entrepreneurship. We essentially have divided our sort of work in three broad areas. We inspire you to create something, and there are a whole lot of activities. I'll run you through some of the slides where we talk about what we do to inspire you. The second part is that we actually inculcate a whole entrepreneurial mindset around it. And the third part is that we also incubate your ideas. We work on giving you a platform where you can actually work with your ideas and take them forward. So what I'll do is I'll quickly run you through what is the formal structure through which you can engage with entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is not a vertical, it's a horizontal, if I may. So regardless of the major that you choose to do, you can do a minor in entrepreneurial leadership and strategy along with that. So a lot of students who come to Ashoka to study economics and finance and history and English and physics and computer science end up doing a minor in entrepreneurship. The minor is called minor in entrepreneurial leadership and strategy. So if you do 6 courses in entrepreneurship, you'd get a minor. If you do 4 courses, you get a concentration. But we also have a combination that we offer, which is an interdisciplinary major in computer science and entrepreneurship. So you can do a combination of courses in computer science and entrepreneurship and get an interdisciplinary major there. Just to give you an idea, we sort of bring in faculty from some of the best faculty in the country and abroad to come and deliver these courses. So we have professors from IIM Ahmedabad who have been visiting Ashoka and delivering these programs. And the courses are a combination of everything from, for example, if you see this, we start with an entrepreneurial mindset. So that there's a full course, a full 40-hour course on how to actually have a mindset that will help you think like an entrepreneur. You move into doing stuff around venture planning and strategy, and then you get into a higher level course on entrepreneurial strategy, operations. We also blend a lot of social impact around this. So we have courses around social entrepreneurship and social impact, and again, faculty from IIM Ahmedabad come and deliver these programs. I teach a course on design thinking, so we bring in a lot of, again, a mindset of working with various startups, and these are live projects. So you don't have to wait to get an internship to try out what you've actually learned in the classroom. Within the classroom, we bring in entrepreneurs who will share a little problem with you, and then they'll work with you and your teams to help you solve those problems. So you actually become a consultant to that little startup during the course of your study. You work with them. So there are a lot of live projects embedded into the curriculum itself. We also have a startup incubation lab that I run where you can actually experiment with an idea that you may have. We work with a number of startups who want Ashoka students to actually immerse themselves into a specific project. So we run a venture immersion program. And then we also run a whole bunch of independent study modules. There are a lot of students who actually want to study the area of entrepreneurship further. And we encourage them to actually come in and so to say, research the area of entrepreneurship. We bring in some of the best visiting faculties from the world of practice. So while we also, while we are bringing in academicians and scholars in the area of entrepreneurship, we also have people who come in from the world of practice. So you may have heard of Rashmi, who's written many books on entrepreneurship. She comes and does a course which is called Leadership Lessons from the Road Less Traveled. We have Piyush, who is from the Harvard Kennedy School. He does a very, very powerful course on governance entrepreneurship. So this course is not just about starting up a venture, but it's a course which helps you to leverage the power of entrepreneurial skills and entrepreneurial mindset to make a change in the system, in the government. So just to give you a background, Piyush works with members of parliament to bring in new laws which impact us every day. He was responsible for working on road safety. And that's the strength that he brings into the classroom. You may have heard of Raman Roy. He's often called the father of the BPO industry in India. He was the chairman of NASSCOM. He runs a course called How to Start a Startup. He brings in a lot of entrepreneurs who actually come with very, very diverse experience and deliver programs. We have Pramod Bhasin, who is the founder of GE Capital in India, later on becoming Genpact. He delivers a course on theory and leadership, a theory and practice of leadership. So that's again a very experiential course, bringing in lots of experts from the field. Yesterday we had a class with him, and we had a 1.5-hour conversation with Dr. Naresh Trehan from Medanta, talking about how he built a dynamic organization in India. We have a few other faculty members who bring in their expertise on marketing and finance. We've also introduced a course on real estate, and real estate is a very interesting asset class. It's something that all of us interact with at some point of time in our lives. So it's a very interesting course that he's delivering. We have a course on digital professionals. So how do you actually build? It's not just about digital marketing, right? It's about a whole digital transformation that's happening in this world. So how do payments transform? How does social media impact us every day? How do things like the India stack be a host of opportunities for us? Monday, we had a class in the digital professional, and we studied the Paytm case study. And we were joined by Vijay Shekhar Sharma to talk about his perspective towards the last hour of the class on what he thinks is the future of digital payments and a digital bank and so on and so forth. So it's not just academic, guys. It's really bringing in a lot of real life professionals and entrepreneurs who come in and deliver classes. We do a course on investments, so the core fundamentals of investments and what it takes to look at different sectors. We have a course on business analysis and strategy. Again, these are people who have been investment bankers for many, many years, and they'd come in and deliver these programs. And then we also look at social finance. So it's not just about, the investment world without looking at the social aspect. And there's a lot of social sensitivity that we build into all our courses. So that was just to give you an idea of the variety, the menu that you can pick from, and the kind of people we bring in. We also have a lot of programs in collaboration with partner universities. So we have, the independent study program that I talked about, and we have, venture immersions, etc. But we also partner with a number of universities abroad. So and there are opportunities to complete credits there. So if you do a summer abroad or a semester abroad, there are programs and courses that you can do there, and we give you credit for that in your transcript at Ashoka. We can talk about more on the logistics of this when we have questions and answers around this. And now, remember, I was telling you about this whole Inspire part. So we have a lot of student clubs and societies which work on entrepreneurship. We focus on, really getting in some of the best inspiring speakers to give a perspective on how they've created what they have and how success is defined for them through their startups and ventures. We have a program called the Ashoka Entrepreneurs in Residence program. Essentially, what happens here is that as a student or an alum of Ashoka, you can stay back in campus and be working on your startup for a period of 6 months, and that can be extended further. And we take care of your housing, we take care of your office space, and we give you a little stipend, and we work with you every day to help you create your venture and make it into a reality. And of course, we open up all resources that we have at the university, both physical resources, intellectual resources, and network of our founders and of our faculty to help you be successful in your ventures. We also have another program that is called the Smart City Accelerator program, and that's open to students of Ashoka, but also students from or entrepreneurs from different parts of the country. And that essentially brings in some of the best minds and best ideas into the campus, you collaborate with them, and you work and get your ideas going. Very recently, the UNDP reached out to us and partnered with us to create a program where we were running an accelerator. In fact, this was an accelerator incubator program that was for the first time happening in India, focused on the LGBTQ community. So entrepreneurs from the community and solutions that serve the community of the LGBTQ were hosted at Ashoka University and at the Center for Entrepreneurship. And this was one of the first dedicated programs that we'd done for the community in entrepreneurship. So I think, just to give you a glimpse of the different kinds of variety of speakers that we've got. So, social entrepreneurs like Sonam Wangchu from Ladakh visited us at the campus. We had Manish Sisodia ji from the Delhi government talking to our students. Some of you might have heard of Shraddha Sharma. She's one of the top media house. She runs a top media house called Your Story. She was speaking to us as a part of how to start a startup. And, she's interviewed almost every entrepreneur in the country today. Advaita Nair, so Nykaa, which went in for an IPO. So the day the IPO went live, Nykaa, who's the CEO, Advaita, who's the CEO of Nykaa, came in and spoke to our students. So this is actually on the day that IPO went live, and it was very exciting to actually get a perspective from her. We've had some Nobel Prize winners as well who've come and visit us. So Professor Muhammad Yunus has visited us twice at the Center for Entrepreneurship. And I can go on, and I can keep sharing with you the kind of people we've got. But I think the core of all of this is that we have fun in what we do. We really want to make this a very practical experience. We wanted to focus on creating a change, and having a change that is meaningful for society. So we combine all of this entrepreneurial experience with whatever you study in the core of your liberal arts education. And one of the things that is most exciting for students who are looking at liberal arts is that we get a lot of students who come in from the background of psychology and English, who want to study entrepreneurship or be part of all the things that we are doing. So it's, a lot of people have this particular mindset that entrepreneurship is meant for people who come from a technical background or a management background or a family business background. It's not always true. A lot of people want to experiment with what we have as offerings at the Center for Entrepreneurship. And this is your chance to actually intersect on a problem-solving mindset, an entrepreneurial thinking mindset. Because at the end of the day, what we are suggesting to all of you is that entrepreneurial thinking or entrepreneurial mindset is a life skill. It's not something that is required just to create ventures. It's required to run a home. It's required to work in a job. It's required to be a good parent. It's required in everything that you will do in life. And that's the mindset that we're going to deliver to you, help you inculcate through our various interventions, courses, and activities outside the classroom as you look at Ashoka. So, back to you, Aditi.
Thank you, Professor. It was really insightful. And we have a lot of questions coming in for both computer science and entrepreneurship department. So let's directly dive into it. So the first question is with respect to the computer science department. So Professor Udbain, if you could take it. The question is, I am currently doing a BTech, but I don't find the course very interesting. I'm learning programming from an external source. I'm keen to apply to Ashoka, but want to understand the major difference between a BSc and a BTech degree and what the future will be like after both.
Sure. The problem is that there's BTech degrees and there's BTech degrees, right? I'd really need to know exactly where you're studying and what kind of syllabus you're looking at. But the problem you're describing is pervasive. In too many places, people are learning, quote unquote, just coding by themselves, and they're not really interested in what is going on in university. in the version of the BSc, and remember, we have this fourth year at Ashoka as well, what we try to do is there's a certain foundation you have to build, right? It's like, if you're studying chemistry, you got to know your periodic table. That's that. But on top of that, there was a reason why my presentation was so research heavy, and why Priyank's presentation was also had also all these actual people coming in, because we think that if you have a learning experience that is actually cutting edge and being done by people who are doing cutting edge real world things, you will learn pretty much by yourself. It's not my job as a professor to be sort of a conveyor belt of information, right? It's my job to inspire you, and then you go look for things and achieve cool things. As far as the exact difference between BSc versus BTech, I think we spend a lot more time on figuring out where to apply things and actually learning core foundational concepts, whereas the actual, the coding side of things, we teach you a little bit of it, but for the rest of the time, we'll give you assignments, we'll give you resources, and you got to learn by yourself, right? There's a lot of peer learning involved. But if you want to hit me up afterwards, you can email me. It's firstname.lastname@ashoka.edu.in. I'm very happy to answer that question in more detail than what I could give right now, because I don't know exactly what your BTech is like.
Thank you, Professor. We have a similar question for Entrepreneurship Department. So is the Entrepreneurship program at Ashoka as good as BBA or a business management degree?
Right. So I think the perspective of studying entrepreneurship in a liberal arts environment is not to get a management job or management related skills. Yes, we will teach you a lot of the management jargon and gyan, but again, it's very application oriented. It's about how you apply it in different contexts. So I think the simple answer to that is no, it's not a replacement for a BBA. You will learn some elements for it, but remember, an entrepreneurship degree or entrepreneurship minor is a minor at Ashoka. It is not the only thing that you will study. You will have to study a whole bunch of other subjects, the other liberal arts subjects at Ashoka as well. So yeah, that's something you have to keep in mind. So if you are looking at getting a management degree, then it's not going to be a replacement for that.
That answers it. There's this another question that a lot of students are asking is, how is the CS and entrepreneurship combination at Ashoka unique compared to other universities? So maybe Professor Prang, you could take it first, and then Professor Debayan could add to it.
Sure. So like I said, it's really the intersection that makes it powerful. The purpose of, doing a variety of different things at Ashoka is that you can get different disciplines to come together, and Debayan talked about it, right? That interdisciplinary is equal to more. And that's really the power of what we are offering here. And we offer independent programs in different subjects, not just, so for example, computer science and entrepreneurship is one which is packaged together. And the reason why it's packaged together is because a lot of the people who actually want to do the technical skills also want to create something out of it. So we've packaged it together. But you can package it with any other subject as well, and that interdisciplinary perspective is something that's going to hold you out. So a lot of students actually do physics in entrepreneurship, like I said, English in entrepreneurship, or psychology and sociology in entrepreneurship. And these are sort of not the usual combinations, but they become very interesting because you're able to fuse different disciplines together. Debayan?
Sure. I'll give. You already said most of what I wanted to say, so I'll give a sort of complementary perspective, which is with any objective that you're trying to get, as when you're trying to do it in a group. Sure, content matters, plans matter, but at the end of the day, the thing that matters the most is the people you're working with, right? If you choose the people correctly, you'll move towards the right kinds of solutions, right? In terms of why Ashoka might be good at CS plus entrepreneurship, think about what Ashoka is, the kind of people who would choose to even teach there and go there. It's a really startup-y kind of place. So by definition, you're going to have the right kind of people in some sense, right? And if you spend some time, go look at the professors who are teaching there. You'll find that most of us, we had our choices. It's not a case of, oh, I didn't get any job offers except at Ashoka and therefore I moved there or something, right? Pretty much there's a huge number of people who have degrees from around the world, Ivy League, what have you, etc. And we chose to come here because we found something interesting, right? When you have a bunch of those people in one place, you're automatically, I love that word, automatically going to have a certain kind of energy and a certain kind of momentum going.
Thank you. Also, Professor, could you please elaborate on one of the projects undertaken by undergraduates at the interface of computer science and economics?
Sure. So I can give you two examples that come to my mind immediately, right? We spent a lot of time a couple of years ago working on a privilege index, right? A lot of us may have various opinions about reservations and so on and so forth, but it's really important to understand these things can get intersectional, right? You can have a person who is from a backward district and is female and has parents who didn't go to school and is disabled, right? Which is very different from having just one of those disabilities, one of those disadvantages rather. And right now, what one does is one just says, okay, let's say the disability pool is the smallest and least competitive pool, so that's the checkbox I'm under or something. And understanding all the different ways in which one can be privileged or not is really important to providing people with the right kinds of opportunities, right? So we did some really amazing work combining expertise in economics, because you're building an index at the end of the day, and anthropology and computer science, because you don't want to build this by your own gut feeling. You want to take very large data sets and use a data-driven tactic to sort of come up with these indices. And that was a really, really interesting project. Right now, we're doing some very cool work in trying to understand how advertising works in the internet and how we can change that. There's a lot of work being done around the world in this area. For example, I think the piece of work I like the most is something called the basic attention token. And it has to do with how, as you are interacting with the internet, how does the money flow? When you get shown an ad, what happens and so on and so forth. And we're doing a lot of work analyzing that sort of thing.
That makes sense. That's really interesting. Also, there's this one question that even I had when I joined Ashoka. Like, how does someone make the decision to pick computer science or entrepreneurship or any other subject for that matter as a major or minor if they haven't studied it before but want to explore it? So, Professor Pran, maybe you could take this.
So I think when you come in, you have some idea of what you want to do, but we don't want you to hold on to that idea very strongly. We want you to explore. And one of the things that is part of the way the course structure is done is that it almost pushes you to study subjects that you are not naturally sort of your favorite subjects, but you have to do a certain amount of foundational courses, and those foundational courses are the point where you actually study disciplines that you've never done before. And more often than not, we've seen students come in with a very fixed mindset. We want to do only economics. At the end of first year, they've completely moved and changed their mind because we want to do something else and because they find something else more exciting, and so on and so forth, right? So it's okay if you're not 100% sure of what you want to do. It's okay if you're not sure even after you've joined Ashoka. It's okay if you're not sure even after maybe a semester or two. And that flexibility is what is something that you must leverage to explore things that you've not done before. The second part of that answer would be that don't be close to experimenting with different combinations, and combinations that don't are not the, when I say combinations of a major and a minor, and don't have fixed mindset saying if I do economics then only entrepreneurship will make sense for me, or if I'm studying English, then I should study media studies along with it or so on, something like that. You can try different combinations, and when you come into this ecosystem, you'll find students doing all different kinds of things, and your seniors will be the ones who will actually give you a lot of these ideas, and you can chat with faculty and get mentored and so on and so forth. And then you have students from different fields coming in and doing computer science, so you intersect a lot. So maybe you want to share that as well.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have anything worthwhile to add to the answer. This was pretty comprehensive.
Great. Entrepreneurship and CS and all courses at Ashoka are really an experience. There's definitely so much to explore. There's another one for you, Professor Priyank. How many entrepreneurial ventures has Ashoka incubated? Does the center provide funding for these?
Okay. So every year we have about close to 10 students, alum, etc., coming into the student incubation program, the Entrepreneurs at Residence program. Some of them become successful, some of them fail early and decide to do other things, some of them pivot. For us, each one is special, and each one is, in our mind, a success. If you feel that you're not going to be successful, we help you to fail early, and I realize that idea was not worth it, and then move on to other things. Very often, students would say, "Hey, you know what? I tried my hand on this. I'd love to come back to entrepreneurship, not immediately after I graduate, because I'd like to get some experience, go work, try out the real world a little bit, and then come back." And we encourage all of that. As far as funding is concerned, we will give you access to funding. So there's a network of people who can fund ventures, and we help you get ready for funding. We help you present to them and be sort of ready to use the funds. But we don't provide funds ourselves. We do provide you the resources and the infrastructure around getting off the ground, but we are not a funding agency as a university. But we'll show you the direction where you can get the funds.
Okay. So the next question is, I haven't studied computer science in my A levels. I know there are no prerequisites for the course. So what would it like to be a non-tech person in a computer science class?
I mean,
yes.
There's a very large number of people who don't have a CS background coming into CS, right? That's part of the exploration thing that Priyank talked about just before this, right? It's extremely common. We'll train you up. Don't worry about it. I'm completely serious. It is not something that you really need to be worried about. I think the underlying question there is, what do I need to do to succeed, right? The answer is turn up, like literally. That is a surprisingly big factor. It's like going to the gym. It's very easy to turn up the first day. It's a little harder the second day, and it's really hard the 16th day. If you can maintain your internal motivation and just keep turning up to things, even when they seem hard, and I know this seems so stupid and cliched, but it's cliched because it's true. There's a reason for it, right? If you actually turn up and do stuff, that's it. That's all you need. That's it. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to be sort of uber hardworking and stay awake at night. No. You just need to turn up and sort of deliver on time. That's it. That'll give you like 99% of everything you need. And then you just wait for that one spark of creativity. But that's just a matter of time.
There is a follow-up to this question. So for a high school student, would you recommend any resources that they could use to develop a CS background?
I mean, the world's filled with resources. We mainly use said resources to watch cat videos and weird dances, but like, don't restrict yourself. I found that lots of people are just dreamers. Dreaming is good, but actually doing something is even better, which is when you see something interesting that you like, you watch us. Just before this call, I was looking at a Smarter Everyday video where they were building a block and tackle pulley. Cool, you spend 15 minutes doing that, but then a weekend or two later, actually build that thing at home. It's the same idea with if you're doing computer sciencey things. Don't just vaguely, it's like saying if I like chocolate, chocolate isn't going to rain from the sky, right? You got to go and do something about it. Same idea. You think something is cool in CS, or, ooh, I like gaming. What do you know about gaming? Actually find out. Go talk to someone who codes up games. Email them, do some cold calls. Like, actually take the initiative to do something, right? The moment you do that, that's the turning up bit. You will succeed at whatever you're doing sooner or later. That's really it.
That's true. Also, Professor, there's another question for you. Do we have sub-courses in computers like behavior analytics, UX, etc.?
So a lot of these niche things are covered by what we call ISMs. I'm running one right now, for example, where we're trying to delve into UX and stuff like that. So yeah, you can take these courses.
Professor Priyank, this one's for you. What are the career fields after an entrepreneurship degree?
Every field. And like I said, it's a life skill. So you can get into a corporate job, you can get into a social sector job, you can start up on your own, you can start up or set up a social sector organization. You can choose to be a homemaker. I think you'll be doing very well in all of those things after you've done something in entrepreneurship. I think the core of it is that you will always find a better way of doing things, right? So you will find problems that exist in your life and in the world every day, and you will have a mindset to find a solution to them. So whether the solution comes from computer science or the solution comes from any other discipline, you will have a mindset to bring those resources together. And that's why, again and again, I'm saying the same thing. It's a life skill. And to give a slightly more sort of placement oriented answer to that is that a lot of the students who've done courses in entrepreneurship go into consulting kind of jobs and roles, not because they are smarter than the students who don't do entrepreneurship. It's because when you do these courses in entrepreneurship, you learn the language that some of these organizations want to hear, and so you end up making it through. But that's not what we are here for only. We are here for a lot more. It's not just about getting the best job on campus. It's about having that mindset, and that mindset is something that you can use in anything that you do.
That's true. When I came in, I was a very job person. Now I have started thinking about doing things of my own. So it has really helped me. Next question is for Professor Debayan. So how are the placements from a CS program?
So placement wise, I'm not the person to give you, I can only tell you about students that I've directly interacted with, because I wouldn't happen to have sort of all the statistics on this. So my knowledge comes from mainly students I've written recommendation letters for, right? A fair number of them go abroad to do higher studies of various kinds. But that's a really biased sample, because if they're doing research with me and they ask me for a recommendation letter, then chances are they're trying to go abroad to do some kind of higher studies. We've got students just in the last year or so, I'm thinking about just the last one academic year, loads of people, even under COVID conditions, getting into the usual, top universities abroad. That's pretty common. We have a really good relationship with Microsoft Research. A bunch of our students end up heading to Microsoft Research. Yeah, the usual sort of Google, Facebook, Microsoft places are very, very common. There's a couple of other places like Frax Analytics and so on and so forth, who are common employers. It's pretty standard stuff. They get into good places. But really, if you want detailed statistics about that sort of thing, the Career Development Office is the right group to talk to.
And he says pretty standard stuff, it means pretty cool stuff. Let me just add a little bit to my answer that you asked me, Aditi, which is that a lot of our students, especially students who want to study further, they come back to us after maybe a year or so, and they also look at applying to different universities in different parts of the world for an MBA. So, and then, of course, we help them with recommendations and stuff, but they've also, in the meanwhile, they've worked with different sort of startups or done something which helps them build that profile to get in. And then once they apply for the MBA, they've already got a very good experience of, basic words and terminology that it's used in different, entrepreneurship courses, etc.
Oh, great. So before we move ahead to the breakout room section, there's one question for me, so I'll just quickly take it. It goes like, how has it been studying computer science and entrepreneurship at Ashoka? So to be very brief about it, it has been amazing. I am pretty sure I want to do something of my own. So that's something I learned from the entrepreneurship department. And because we need tech everywhere, it backs up from the CS skills that I learned. So it's been amazing. I've been getting a lot of internship opportunities via Ashoka, via the departments, and I highly recommend. So that was it for the Q&A. Now we could go to the breakout rooms. So thank you all for joining for the first session of Meet the Professors. We will now be moving to the breakout rooms. To join the breakout room, please click on the icon at the bottom of the screen and choose the room you want to enter. But before that, please take a minute to share your feedback with us. The link to the feedback form is provided in the chat box. Kindly note that the recording of this session will be available on Ashoka's YouTube channel in case you would like to share it with your friends. The next session of Meet the Professors, Economics at Ashoka, is scheduled for Tuesday, 8th of February, 2022 at 6 p.m. The registration link is in the chat box. So before we move to the breakout rooms, I would once again like to remind our audience that round 3 admissions to Ashoka's undergraduate program are open. You can apply without your 12th board marks to secure your admission. The link to the application form is provided in the chat box. If you have any further queries, you can also write to us at ugapply@ashoka.edu.in or contact us on the number given on the screen. See you in the breakout rooms.
I think Parul has a question. She wants to say something. So.
I think she can't see the breakout rooms. You will be able to see now.